Hey, what's up, everybody? This is George from PictureMonk.com. Welcome to episode 62 of the podcast. And if you can't tell by the description of this, by the title, it is a photography question podcast because I've got more questions that I need to answer from you guys. But it's also geared towards a specific topic. I've been wanting to do this for a very long time. It doesn't matter what topic I want to talk about, but I just happen to have more business questions come in here lately that I want to address. So I went ahead and made a business Q&A podcast section, I guess. And so I was finally able to do that, because usually the questions that I get are kind of random and scattered. But this time it's really great to actually have questions that are geared towards a specific topic. I've been wanting to do that, so it's finally great to be able to do that. But as always, you guys know, I start off the podcast by news articles that I found, or just articles in general that I found. And this one is a really great one, especially if you are a fan of the Game of Thrones series. And so this I'm trying to pull it up here real quick. My iPad's not wanting to be slow. But it's an article that I found on Petapixel. Usually I find most of the stuff on Petapixel just because it's a great site. But this one is, the article was entitled Beautiful and Eerie Landscape Photos Inspired by Game of Thrones. And so there's a photographer, Kellen, it's a German landscape photographer who's actually colorblind. Kellen Skornberger, I believe. Says this is what they wrote on the description here. If you're already missing Game of Thrones, let's be honest, who isn't? We've got a little pick-me-up for courtesy of the talented photographer and colorblind landscape photographer Keller Skornberger. He sought out castles, ruins, monasteries, medieval cities, old villages, eerie graves, and haunting forest scenes that he felt captured the spirit of the show. These are real places, and you can see all the photos, or at least some of them, that he posted online. You can see them over on the show notes. I'll link to the Petapixel article. And they're really great. There are some that almost look like they are screenshots from the show. So it's actually a really cool series. And that actually just goes to show you that, you know, even if you don't have any particular jobs at that moment that that you're not hired for or anything, doing a project like this is actually kind of cool. You know, it's kind of a, you know, hey, I want to take photos that are inspired, that look like they belong to the show. And so it's just kind of cool to do that. And, you know, when you do stuff like that, it gets picked up on major blog sites like Petapixel. So it's kind of cool to see that happen. And I really enjoyed that. So the photos are, again, linked on the show notes for this episode, PictureMonk.com/PMP062, and you can check those there. So since this is, again, usually like the question and answer podcast, I don't really have a listener question because I have a whole bunch of questions. So I'm just going to roll right into the questions, and we'll see what we got here. This question is from Jesse from Portland, Oregon. And they say, I use Squarespace for my photography portfolio, but my site is not showing up high on the Google listings. How can I make it show up higher and get more jobs? There's not really much you can do about that, especially if your site is brand new or somewhat new. It takes a very long time for Google to crawl the site and get their crawl bots out there and pick it up. There's a couple things you can do. You can go to Google Webmaster and add your site to the Webmaster link. Just have a Google account, sign in to your Google, go to Google Webmaster. I don't remember the link exactly, but you can just type in Google Webmaster and add a new site there. And if you're using Squarespace, they have a really good article that shows you how to verify your site, so that Google will take the specific code that they give you, and you put that code on your website, usually in the H1 or H2 header sites or header portions of their website, and it'll allow you to verify it just like that, and it'll start. It basically lets Google know your site is there. That's basically what it does. And so it just gives them a little boost. But really what gets your site high in the rankings or in the rankings in general is just time. It takes a lot of time for it to do that. Yeah, you can put out keywords, and the more content that you put out as far as blog posts with keywords that you want to trigger, the more people come to your site or have the potential to come to your site, because the more traffic you got going out. So the way I've heard it put before, which is actually a really good way to put it, is your site is a city, and this is the city right here. Your website is a big city, but you need roads to go into the city. So the more roads you build, then the more people can come into your city. So you put out a blog, and that's one road. You put out a few images and stuff like that, that's another road. You keep putting all these roads, and eventually people will filter into your site. So that's a good way to put it. So if you want to do if you want help on the verification part of it, I'll link the support article from Squarespace. I'll link that on the show notes as well, so you can check that and just verify your site. Really simple to do. I've done it. It takes maybe 3 minutes, just as long as time just to log into your websites, and that's it. So it's a really good way to do it. But again, time is the only way to do that, really. So thanks, Jesse, for the question, and let's go to the next one. This one is from Rachel from Tampa, Florida. And it says, I have looked at my competition in the area, and they offer a bunch of services like videography, photo printing, and photography packages that include multiple shooters and lighting setups. I am just starting out, so how do I compete with that? First of all, it's good to look at your competition, but not try to base yourself off of your competition. That's at least my belief, at least in my opinion, that's the way to do it. It's good to see what they offer. So maybe, that you said that they offer videography as well. Maybe you could do videography, but it would have to be on a smaller scale. Especially if you're a one-person job, you get one-man band, that kind of thing. If you're that, you need to make sure it's a small scale, something that you can handle. Maybe if you, let's see, you said multiple shooters. One thing you could do is, if you have a friend who is somewhat interested in photography, maybe give them like a little crash course. If they have a camera, give them a little side teaching there. So that way, if a job does come up, they can be your second shooter. You're still relying only on your photos, but they can still be there to help out. Maybe get a couple key shots, but that's one way to do it. I wouldn't do anything major like I wouldn't do like a $3,000 a job wedding, and just give your friend a second shooter job. I wouldn't do that. But if it's a smaller job, it's going to be a smaller wedding or something like that, they can be a second shooter. If you do like a portrait session, they can be a second shooter on that as well. So that's one thing I would do, but I wouldn't worry about comparing yourself to your competition. You get into looking more to your competition and looking less at yourself and seeing what you can do. So I thought that was a good way to put that there. So, but yeah, I would just pay attention to what you can do, offer what you can offer, and then eventually the more experience and the more clients will come, and you'll eventually get to where you're sort of a bigger business, and that's the hope, at least. So that's my advice to you there. I hope it answers something. So thanks, Rachel, for that question. We got a few more here. I didn't have a whole lot of business questions, but they were business questions, so I just threw them in here. The next one is, my client wants the raw files from a recent portrait session, and I'm really nervous about giving them unedited files. Is there any way around this? Yeah, there's a way around it, but it just depends on how much you want to go through with it. So one way you could do this is you could go into Lightroom, import your raw files in Lightroom, and give them a quick edit. Don't do any stylized editing or anything like that. Just do really quick basic edits to make them look somewhat decent. Obviously, if you have bad shots that are, like they're blurry, and you got somebody, maybe it's a wedding or something, I don't know, but you got somebody and they got a fork in their mouth, I don't know, maybe it's just a bad shot. Don't give them those, obviously. That's not anything nobody wants. But what you can do is just do a real quick edit, highlight all of them, and then export them as DNGs. And so DNGs are digital negatives. And that's actually the preferred way to give people raw files. The reason for that is because, if you have depending on what you have, Canons, I don't know what they are, but Nikon's, no, I don't know what Nikons are. I know what Canon CR2 files. You don't want to give them the CR2 files because maybe whatever program they're opening them up doesn't have capability of doing that. I don't know. But the digital negatives are kind of like a universal raw file, quote unquote, that will still hold the edits that you had, but it will allow them to open up with more information. And you can tell the client that. You can say, I gave you a DNG file that has that's a raw file technically. I gave you that file just to make sure that you can open it on your editing program. If you're really worried about giving them raw files and you don't want to do that, you can tell them. You have two options really. You can tell them that you don't really feel comfortable giving them the files, and say you can give them high quality JPEGs, because a lot of people, unless they're really into it, aren't really going to care about the raw files. I think that's something that people hear and they're like, yeah, I want to make sure I have the raw information. They don't really care. They won't really know what they're getting technically. So that, you could do that, or you can just give them the DNGs and just be done with it. It's almost like if somebody's being picky like that, you just kind of give them what they want and get them off your list, that sort of thing. So that's one way around it, and that's kind of actually what I would recommend. But just emphasize, I can give you the highest quality JPEG possible. Will that be enough? And if they still want it, still want the raw files, give them the DNGs, and just be done with it. Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, that was Rachel. Yeah, thanks, Rachel, for that question. No, that was actually Thomas from Bryan, Texas. Sorry about that. Thomas from Bryan, Texas. Thank you, Thomas, for that question. Let's go to the next one. I feel like I'm doing like a rapid fire here of these, but this one is from Daniel from Grandport, UK. And Daniel says, I'm thinking about only offering prints to my clients, not giving them JPEGs, so I can sell more prints. What do you think about that? I think it's a dumb decision. A lot of people, especially these days, you hear guys, other photographers saying, we offer, we can print them for you and get you a really good prints, and when you do a portrait session, we'll give you the JPEGs, but we'll also give you these prints as well. Most of the time, from my experience, they don't care about the prints because they're going to go get them printed themselves anyway. I feel like a lot of photographers, especially portrait photographers, they offer the prints as just a little, like a little attaboy. Like, yeah, we'll, get her, when you sign us as your photographer, you get the raw file or the JPEGs, but you also get some prints. The prints cost nothing to the photographer, really. So, and like an 8x10 is, I don't know, $4 or something like that. And you get a few of those. That's nothing compared to the actual cost of the session. So only offering prints is not gonna do anything. I think you're gonna get turned down more than any other photographer out there, because people want the digital files. Not only does that mean they have to get you have to sell them prints, but you're basically telling your client you can't post these on any social media or anything like that. They have to go get them scanned to get a file and then put them on social media. Nobody wants that. So I would really recommend not doing that. It's a very dumb decision. I'm not calling you dumb. I'm just saying that decision's dumb. But you don't really want to just offer that. Yeah, you can offer prints. And, one thing you can say is I offer really high quality printing. So I can print your files for you, but here are the JPEGs. I'm going to give you the JPEGs, but I can give you really high quality prints and I can deliver them to you, in a very timely, quick manner, that sort of thing. So yeah, please don't do that. You're not going to make it far, I don't think, as a photographer if you do that, or at least your business isn't. So, please don't do that. That's a bad decision. But thank you for the question, Daniel. The next one is from Barry from Dublin, Ireland. And Barry says, how do you price your photography jobs? Pricing is always a tricky thing when it comes to any sort of art like this, I guess. But, what I do, or what I did, is I look at my competition. That's another kind of thing where it says it's okay to look at your competition, but don't base it off of that. So I look at my competition to see what what they're offering in the area. One guy he didn't put pricing on his website, so I acted like I was, needing him for a job and got a quote from him and stuff like that. So I looked around and I kind of had a number in my head on what I wanted to charge per job. And so, I was looking around and trying to find it, and the number I had in my head was a tad bit high. And so when I was looking at my competition, I kind of had to back that down a little bit. And so I put just a base number on my website for what I charge per job. And so when people email me and they say, what's it going to cost? That number will fluctuate. It's hardly ever going to stay what it is on my site. And I tell them that. I say, hey, there's a number on my site and, it might cost that much. It might cost less. It might cost more. The recent job I had, it actually cost more, and they were okay with that. So, I looked around my competition, saw what they were charging, and just kind of based it off of that. Cause you can outprice your area really quick. And so you have to either, you got to either be okay with getting less jobs, but making more money per job, or getting more jobs and making less money per jobs. It just depends on what you want. So I try to find a happy medium in there, and I think I found it. But again, the more jobs I get, the higher the price may go, because I'm more in need, maybe. That could always happen. So definitely look at your competition in your area and see what they're charging, and kind of roughly base it off of that, and you should be good after that. And the last question, just trying to get through these real fast. The last question is, what invoicing service or payment service do you use to accept money from clients? Is it all online, or do you do invoicing in person? Kathy from Newport News, Virginia. I use PayPal. They have a really good invoicing service. It's just built in. Yeah, they take 2.9% of your, I think it's 2.9% plus $1 or something like that, of your final cost. But I kind of build that into the cost anyway. So I'm not really losing that much money off of it. I think the most that they've ever taken is $3 or something. So yeah, I would use PayPal. I do have Square, the little device that you plug into your phone. Have that. It works really good too. So if I ever need to do it in person, I have that. So thanks, Kathy, for the question. Let's go and do the widget of the week real quick, because I can see my battery's dying in my camera. So the widget of the week real quick is the Expensify app. It's a great way to track expenses and make sure that you have all your expenses. You can take screenshots of your receipts and do all that kind of stuff. It's a really great iPhone and Android app. So it's a really good, really free way to do it. You can track mileage and all that kind of stuff. So I would recommend the Expensify app if you're looking for something like that. Kind of goes along with the business portion of the podcast here. So before my battery dies, I'm going to get off here, guys. Thank you for joining me for the podcast. Make sure you join the PictureMonk Facebook group page, picturemonk.com/nation, and you can join me there and join a whole bunch of other people, post your photos and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you join that. And that's the Quickie podcast number 62. So thanks for joining me, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.